Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're tuning in. This is Sacred, and I am here in Shemuyel, beautiful Shemuyel, in Tulum, Mexico. Um, just very thankful to be grounded in this beautiful space during this very serious time of uncertainty and change in the world. Very thankful. And I actually started this channel back in January, right before COVID hit, and thus took a little break to make sure that I was grounded before I attempted to support anyone else in their grounding. And so, since then I've actually moved into the jungle, and I found a lot of peace and nurturing here. And I want to encourage everyone to make that their number one goal, is to find peace and nurturing for yourself, right? Because right now we have to take full responsibility for the energy that we come with, regardless of whatever else is happening. So just take a moment and make sure that you are practicing self-care. So that's what this YouTube channel will be about. Today, I would like to share some thoughts about how I have processed living outside of the United States and the value that it has had for me. I'm going to talk a little bit about the pros and the cons, okay? And before I get started, well, this is a pro, the beautiful artwork, right? Before I get started, I am going to play the healing bowl at the note of F, which is for the heart chakra, just to put us all in tune with one another for a moment. Peace pipe. Okay. So, respira profundo. Breathe deeply. Breathe deeply. Take a moment to just be thankful for this now moment, thankful to our ancestors who opened the way for us, thankful to the elements and the directions, thankful to our spirit guides. Okay, so I will be sharing the benefits of living abroad for me. Um, I have now been living in Mexico for about 7 months, but this is my second stint of being out of the States. Prior um, to this time, I had lived in Ghana, West Africa from 2001 to 2010. And I raised my children there, and I got a very valuable experience from that. And I know now, with all of the changes that people are going through, more African Americans are looking for options, or maybe even Americans, but this specifically will be more catered to African Americans because of the situation that we're in. Um, I want to offer this as a political strategy. I have been very politically conscious since the 90s, since I was at Howard University. I became conscientized there, also with a very heavy influence from Professor Waldo Katz Fishman in the sociology department. She was my mentor, and I followed her into Project South and Revolutionaries for a New America. I then joined the All African People's Revolutionary Party. I was in Oseret, which is a cultural alternative society based off of lots of wonderful spiritual technologies that I learned. I threw myself into because I had my awakening at that time. So I did everything that I could to learn about community and health and healing, wellness, alternative spirituality, women's arts, feminine arts, the things that I didn't really feel I learned very much from the type A American culture. And so I was completely submersed in those things, and being very alternative in my outlook at that time, I could see that to live in America would have been to live as an anti-citizen, like someone who's always against everything. I was against the educational system. I homeschooled, I home birthed. I was against vaccinations. I was against going to the hospital. I was against, fast food. I was against, vulgar stuff in the media. I was against how African Americans are promoted and undermined, promoted in the media in a negative way, undermined culturally, intentionally, the drug war and the dangers. And so we were living very African-centered, African clothes, African names, all these things, and I felt like I was in a bubble. And I felt like it was very unhealthy to be African-centered and not go to Africa. So that is what we did in 2001, January. 2 children, pregnant, married. And I can honestly say it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. And I will give the reasons why. But overall, I can say that it was a proactive, progressive way to express myself politically. I'm not interested in fighting about my beliefs and how I do not lend my energies and participation to fuckery. And I'm not interested in talking about it. I just wanted to raise my children the way I wanted to raise them in an environment as much like what I wanted to raise them in, freely. And so I was able to do that. So let me start with number one. The benefits of living outside the States. Number one, I felt was that, especially as an African American, you jump from the lowest social status to the highest social status. Because in America, you're automatically stuck related to that history of oppression and violence, and always being on guard about how to not be a victim. And when I moved to Ghana, and also my experience in Mexico is the same, but especially in Ghana, because it's a community of dark-skinned African people. There's a hierarchy there, and so African Americans automatically go to the top as Americans, even if you're dark-skinned. If you speak English very well and you have an American experience, you are then automatically seen in the upper echelon. So for me personally, being extremely well educated, there was nowhere where I couldn't go, except for in communities that were closed, but that was okay because I didn't want to be in those communities. I mean, everyone has private clubs and communities, but I mean, as far as the level, I could meet with a public official, like the president, if I wanted to, write a proposal and get in, hobnobbed with the very highest, had interactions with Stevie Wonder and worked with Rita Marley and worked in the AU as executive coordinator of the Diaspora African Forum when it was founded. There were no limits. So, even racially, I didn't. You don't feel it. You were seen as an American. And American, because of capitalism, are seen as the most powerful and the richest. So a lot of difference in that reality to go from being afraid to being slaughtered on the street to people fighting to get next to you and get to know you. Number 2 is the freedom of creativity and expression of just the lifestyle, living however I wanted. Again, I homeschooled. I just set every single thing according to how I wanted to live. So we painted on the walls. We had all kinds of animals, including a baboon at one point. We wouldn't get up until we wanted to. We didn't have to live by I'm a Virgo, so I set schedules, but I set them to support our health and well-being first in our family life. So we would get up whenever we got up, which is usually a respectable time, but whatever time it was, that wasn't the issue. After everybody was up, we'd have breakfast, a really good breakfast, and then I teach them what I wanted to teach them and expose them to what I wanted to expose them to. And no one was governing that. No one was surveillancing our daily lives that I know of. And we had lots of choices where, again, we didn't have to explain anything to anyone, because in America, it's not just about the legal freedoms, but also social freedoms, as far as everybody having an opinion on what you're doing if it's different. Something basic like vaccination at that time was controversy worthy, and so we were living in controversy as far as our relationship to even my family in the States at that time. So I was free. My children were free. I could let them, they could run around naked outside, but because we were just on our own property, it was free. Safety. We were safe, no ghetto experience. Of course, this is about where you choose to live, but there are lots of choices, and so we were always able to find places that were extremely safe, where everyone was family loving, people would look out for you, people didn't lock their doors. In hardly any house that we had did we ever really have to lock our doors. Don't get me wrong, there were robberies and those kinds of things. Usually they were from people who worked in your house. That kind of thing was more prevalent. There was petty theft. But I would say overall, you're much safe. It's not a violent place. I could me and my children could walk at any time at night on the street. No violence and murder like what exists in the States at all. We wouldn't even be thinking about those things. Those things didn't come up generally, unless we were talking about the States, because at that time they had school shootings and things. But those kind of things just did not exist, do not exist where I am. Yeah. Incredible safety, including environmental safety. You know, no chemtrails, more natural water, those kinds of things. Okay, opportunities. The opportunities were like out of this world. It's hard for me to even communicate the level of just how the opportunities were endless. It was like basically whatever we wanted to do, we could choose to do it and get in. So it's like my background is in psychology, sociology, community organizing, you know, that kind of thing, event organizing. But in Africa, we were in branding promotions, business consulting. We had a social website. We were on radio. I was a radio producer. I was a radio DJ. I was a celebrity. We launched the major movie theater when it came out, the major mall when it came out. We were involved in everything, and no one ever asked for a degree, ever. No one questioned, gave us a side eye. We were always received with good faith. Yeah, we did everything. We were in tourism, with VIP tours. You know, I was a photographer. I did voiceovers and advertising, things that I had never done before, but I was able to do it. I was able to write commercials and do them. So I think that's one of the biggest things, was just to be able to get out of that box of whatever your degree was in, and how limited you are of competition for whatever you're doing. Because competition is just as high for Ghanaians who live there for themselves, but being an African American who moved to Ghana, you become a special person. You have a niche, and we use that niche. Like, we had a radio show called The Time Machine, where we really exploited the fact that we were African Americans. That's where a lot of the hip hop culture is coming from, which the youth follow. We were on YFM. And so people really, really followed us, and our show was called The Time Machine, because we would take the current hip-hop and then show how you would go back in time and have the original song that they took the sample from. And so people really liked that, because it was like a music education thing. And so anyway, it just went on and on, the kinds of things that we could offer in that environment. It was endless. So I say creative living in that way, opportunities are a great, great plus. Yeah, I mean, I had a bottle of wine with Stevie Wonder. We interviewed John Legend, and we were like in the front of both of their concerts as guests. My children performed with both of them. So I mean, it was pretty amazing, the people that came around who were in our circle. You know, the African Union came. I took pictures with Robert Mugabe, and you know, almost had my camera broken by Gaddafi's people. So anyway, number 5 is just being exposed to people who are used to a more relaxed and natural family community life. The way that they keep it harmonious, the way that their lifestyle is, the balance that they keep, to be exposed to it really helps without all the serious commercialism. And then also we participated in these communities for the entire time. So we were with a group called Africana, which is a dance and culture group, which is our family there. Hey, you guys. You know, the dances and the songs, there's so much rich substance in there. And then there's also Africania, which is another group that was traditionally based, also based in the Awe culture, which is the culture that does Vodou. We grew up doing the dances, singing the songs, participating in important life celebrations with these people. And so we really got a feel for what village life was. And that was a blessing to not have had that experience. It's something I've always wanted. And they have their challenges today, for sure. But just to have that, where you have generations of families and them being connected in that way, and the level that they put their connections as their priority, that was big. And for my children to grow up with that. And that also lends to number 6, which is respect. Respect as a way of life, respect for human beings, for roles and responsibilities in families, for animals and the way that we interact with animals. Traditional people kill their own animals, and the way that they deal with them, they treat them as natural beings and don't participate in killing unnecessarily, or just, a lot of sporting violence. So respect was very big. Hip-hop culture, luckily when we did our show, we had full control, and we didn't play anything that had negative topics. We chose only conscious hip-hop. KRS-One, Dead Prez, Erykah Badu, Lauryn Hill, the things that have really uplifting messages. So we weren't exposed to the disrespect also in hip-hop culture, which to me as an African American woman is huge. It's one of the biggest reasons why I can't take the States. It's not palatable for me, because too many of us take it in, and it I feel has I was going to say the word retarded, but I want to have respect for people who don't like that word. It has caused a regression in our evolution. We have to take control of our art again. Number 7 is that living abroad is more stimulating intellectually. It just makes you smarter to learn other cultures, other languages, to bend your mind, to understand other people's perspectives. To see the perspectives on the news from the other country, to experience the multi-dimensionality of culture. There's so many different ways that you learn. As something as simple as gestures, how people carry themselves. It tells you a lot. Language, for sure. Number 8 is that living abroad keeps you grounded if you live it properly. If you choose to. It has kept me grounded. Nature has kept me grounded, and also in having to adjust to other people's ways of life and finding a median ground. It's very valuable in just knowing where you are with life, because everything around you changes but you. So you have to really know yourself to deal with different kinds of circumstances and different circles of people and those kinds of things. So nature has kept me grounded. In all of this, I can say that being able to be alone in nature has been very important in my mental health, dealing with everything. It's very nurturing. And it's like the way of life in both Mexico and Ghana is like the people have meditation as part of their practice. Meditation is like how people go about it. So they go about things slower and they take more time out, but people are more balanced. And so that has helped me to be in touch with my natural self, to let all the other things fall away that are so huge in the States, all the smart stuff and all the automation and all the electrical stimulation. It's good just to have downtime and really ground, which is something that has been scientifically proven to be important. Put your feet in the dirt, hug a tree. Number 9, I kind of touched on this as far as being grounded in nature. The next one is your self-identity, especially being African American. Even though I was raised as a fairly, upper class African American, I had no idea how it would affect me to live in Africa and how it would affect my identity as a person, and to be able to outgrow the box that was in the States, even for rich African Americans. It's very, very different. So before I moved to Africa, first I was very, very American, which caused myself to become more reactionary, where I became very, very African. So it was important when I moved to Africa to find that balance, because I am both. And it actually helped me to understand how Native American I am, and how, even the Irish and the English influence in my bloodline, where that fit in, where everything fit in, where I am a citizen of the world spiritually too, like to no longer even feel those limitations. My identity is not attached to any label or limitation in that way. So that has helped me, because that whole American narrative, beginning with slavery, is fucking tired. I'm a very proud African American. I have proud history in the States, and then beyond that, I'm very proud of my indigenous leanings and my connection to Africa and those traditions as well. Number 10, I would say, and this is the last benefit, even though I could probably still go on and find more, but to be able to streamline your life and just focus, like the law of attraction, focus on the things that you want and not the things that you don't want. The ability to do that. Racism, abuse, corruption, oppression, all of those things are just as offensive to me, if not more, than anyone else. And so, again, this strategy of living outside of the States is a political strategy of disengagement and a way to still work on manifesting my dreams and living my life joyfully, which no matter what is going on in the world, it's very important that we keep that as the number one focus, is our ascension. And ascension means unity. It means joy. It means happiness and empowerment. And so I have found that living outside of the States has supported me in that in the most graceful way possible. being the revolutionary that I am in the way that I conceptualize myself, it is the most progressive and proactive way to address the situation. So there are a few things that I would say are the cons or the downside. And so I'm going to visit those quickly because they're really not big, in my opinion, as far as the weight of it. And it's not a decision, it's an easy decision for me. The downside, number one, is that you're targeted as a rich foreigner. This is what I think. You could either be targeted as a rich foreigner or you could be targeted as a poor person at home. Okay. Be subject to being, choked to death, because you're not a rich person. So anyway, that one for me is no problem. You take the necessary precautions and you live in a safe place. The places I've been, I haven't been in danger. So, yeah, you just have to be very discerning and get to know people. Number two, you have less home comforts. You have to be flexible. You have to release attachments to people and places and things that are familiar to you and be open to new. It's a challenge for some. Not for me. So that's number two. Number three, insecurity. For people who like to be very stable and to know what's going to happen day to day and be able to predict what's going to happen year to year and know exactly ahead of time what path you're going to walk, this one probably wouldn't be for you. Again, it serves me and my proclivities. It definitely requires a lot of faith and courage to walk this walk of living outside the country and trying a new lifestyle. So I hope that this has been very illuminating. Now that I am grounded here in Chemuyon, in this beautiful location, I am going to look to offer as many different perspectives and tools, healing modalities as possible in the upcoming month especially. So please look for that. And please like and subscribe the channel so that you don't miss anything. You can even hit that bell, which means that when it comes on, you'll come on. Oh, I guess that's if I do it live. I don't know if I'm going to be live. But, yes, please like and subscribe. And I am available for consultations, for oracle readings, for alternative talk therapy, to give people tools to actually how to apply it, certain things to your life, to find the grounding that's necessary for this great awakening. So thank you very much, and I will be with you again soon. Take care.